Hello friends, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Professor S.P. Singh from Faculty of Management Studies, Gurukul Kangdi University, Haridwar. Today we are going to study Module 24 on Qualitative Research Methods. After studying this module, you shall be able to know the rationale for using qualitative research. Understand the methods of qualitative research. Fundamental reason for using qualitative research methods is indispensable to provide inputs that assist in revealing the object behind visible and measurable instances of occurring. The information derived out becomes precise when explaining and interpreting the findings acquired through quantitative methods. Qualitative methods might be employed for exploratory studies, for formulating and designing the research problem and hypothesis, as inputs for designing the structured questionnaire, as the primary sources of research inquiry for a clinical analysis, where the task is to uncover the reasons for certain occurrences and with segments like children. The use of qualitative research methods generate an in-depth knowledge of the individual's beliefs, attitudes and behavior. For example, why is it a difficult task to sell old homes to Indian families? These methods furnish insights into verbal and non-verbal language and establish the parameters that can be used for measuring a subject's attitude and behavior. The qualitative research methods also provide ability to understand the changing nature of industry and key issues and provide a more adjustable and unstructured approach. Methods of qualitative research. The researcher has an entire range of methods available for performing qualitative research. Most of these have been drawn from branches of social sciences and have been adjusted to match the requirements of the business researcher. They can be either directed towards the manifest or the apparent, like the observation methods, group discussions, and structured interviews. These can be conducted with relative comfort and the analysis also not very cumbersome. On the other hand, they could be directed towards the latent, and the conduction and interpretation requires huge skill and training. Projective techniques and semiotics are some examples of this approach. Observation method. Observation may happen in natural surroundings and engage the researcher in taking long and descriptive record of the occurrence. However, there are definite limits to the situation that can be observed in their natural settings, and that the presence of the researcher may cause problems with validity. Limitations with observation method include the change in people's behavior when they are conscious of being observed. Observation takes a snapshot view of the entire situation. The researcher may fail to observe something while they are watching and taking notes at the same time. The researcher may make judgments of make value statements or misunderstand what has been observed. The positive aspects of observation include offering a flavor for what is happening and give an insight into the bigger picture, as well as demonstrate subgroups and assist in the design of the rest of the research. Sometimes the researcher becomes a participant observer, where they participate in the situation for acceptance and further understand the functioning of the social phenomena. Observation can occasionally obtain more trusted information about certain things. For example, how people actually behave. Observation can also serve as a method for verifying or nullifying information provided in face-to-face interaction. Individuals or environment can be observed. When environment is studied, it can furnish valuable background information that may provide other facets of the research. Techniques for collecting data through observation include written descriptions of the people, situations or environment, video recording and photographs, and documentation. Content analysis. Content analysis entails investigating a prior reported communication and systematically and in an objective manner dividing it up into more manageable units related to the topic under detailed examination. It is uncommon in its nature that it is categorized as a primary data collection technique and yet utilizes previously generated data. However, since the analysis is original, first-hand and problem-specific, it is placed under primary methods. One can content analyze letters, diaries, minutes of meetings, articles, audio and video recordings, etc. The method is structured and systematic and thus of considerable credibility. The technique of focus groups is from time to time employed when it is preferable to obtain information from a group instead of individuals. The size of the sample group may range from 6 to 10 persons, as smaller groups may restrict the possibility on the collection of information. Several focus groups should be used in order to get a more objective and a very large scale of the investigation. A minimum of 3 focus groups is suggested for best practice approaches. Members of the focus group might have common feature which is important to the study. Groups can either be put together or existing groups. It is always beneficial to be careful of the group dynamics of both situations. The purpose of the focus group is to utilize participants' feelings, perceptions, and opinions. This method needs the researcher to apply skills like group skills, facilitating, moderating, listening, or observing and analysis. Personal interview method. Interviews can be structured, semi-structured, or unstructured. Unstructured interview. Unstructured interview can be referred to as depth or in-depth interviews having very little structure. The interviewer may proceed with the purpose of discussing restricted topics and frame the interview questions on the basis of interviewee and his or her prior response. This permits the discussion to include areas in detail. The researcher desires to know more about a specific topic without there being a structure or a preconceived plan or expectation as to how they will occupy themselves with the topic. Semi-structured interview. Semi-structured interviews are also called focused interviews. A series of open-ended questions are asked on the basis of the topic areas the researcher wants to include. A number of widely diffused questions to ask and may have some inducements to assist the interviewee. This type of interviews permit the researcher to inspire the interviewee if they are looking for additional details or identify what they are saying is exciting. This method gives the researcher the freedom to examine the interviewee to seek details or to adopt a new direction of investigation brought in by what the interviewee is saying. It works best when the interviewed has several areas he or she desires to be sure of addressing. Projective techniques. The projective techniques assume the idea of projecting oneself or one's feelings onto ambiguous objects. These methods involve indirect questioning instead of asking direct questions. The method includes an ambiguous stimuli and indirect questions related to imaginary situations or people. The aim of the research is to create a situation to the respondents to project their underlying needs, emotions, beliefs, and attitudes. Project techniques reveal beliefs, attitudes, and feelings that might indicate the importance of certain behavior or interactive situations. Association techniques. These are the most frequently used methods in management research. They essentially involve presenting a stimulus to the respondent and he needs to respond with the first thing that comes to his mind. The method is essentially borrowed from clinical psychology, the most well known being the Rsource ink blot test. The set of ink blots are ambiguous in nature. However, these are standardized blots symmetrical in nature. The first few are in shades of black and white and the other are colored. Each of these is presented in a sequence to the consumer. The responses, time taken, the direction in which the blot is turned are noted. There are norms and scores available for evaluating the personality of the individual. They require a considerable amount of training in construction and interpretation and thus are not commonly used. Completion techniques. These techniques involve presenting an incomplete object to the respondent which can be completed by the respondent in any way. For example, a student life is, Pizza Hut is. Another extension of the technique is story completion. Here the individual is given an incomplete story or idea. One provides a backdrop and a background for a possible topic. However, the possible end is left open-ended. The subject is supposed to complete the story and provide a conclusion. The theoretical assumption is that the completion of the study or sentence reflects the underlying attitude and personality trait of the person. Construction techniques. These techniques might appear similar to completion technique. However, the completed object, which could be a story, a picture, a dialogue, or a description. Here again, the level of ambiguity and scope for letting loose the respondent's imagination is vast. Commonly used construction techniques in business research include the story completion tests and cartoon tests. Of the story construction test, the thematic apportion test is most commonly used. The story gives an indication of the person's personality and need structure. For example, a person may be characterized as extrovert or a pessimist or high on creativity or high on dogmatism and so on. Choice or ordering techniques. These techniques involve presenting the respondents with a diverse group of stimuli in the shape of pictures or statements connected to the study topic. The subject is expected to distinguish them into categories on the basis of the study instructions given. The test is used to measure attitudes and the strength of the existing attitude. Expressive techniques. In the expressive techniques, the method or means or expressions used in attempting the exercise are significant. The subject requires to reveal not his or her own opinions and sensations, but those of the supporters of the cause in a given verbal or visual situation. The technique presumes that people are uncomfortable giving personal opinion on a sensitive issue, but not hesitate when it is in the third person. Role play is used in business research where the respondents are asked to play the role or assume the behavior of someone else. Evaluating projective techniques. The projective techniques are unsurpassed in revealing latent yet significant responses which would not surface through a more structured or standardized technique like focus group, discussion or interviews. The ambiguity and the third person setting gives the respondent a sufficient confidence to feel comfortable about revealing attitudes, interests and beliefs about sensitive issues. Sociometric analysis has the group rather than the individual as its unit of analysis and thus has its origin in sociology. The estimations done based on these choices express the social attraction and avoidance in a group. One may ask the individual to also carry out the reverse that indicate whom from the group do they think would choose him or her. The data obtained by these kinds of sociometric questions can be subjected to quantitative analysis. The matrix in this case is an n by n matrix where n is the number of people in the group. The choice matrix is based upon the answers given by the subjects to the sociometric questions. Based on the matrix drawn and the indicated choices, it is possible to obtain two quantitative measures. Friends, in this module, you have studied the rationale for using qualitative research and the methods of qualitative research. Thanks for visiting EPG Pathshala.